Alexa, turn off. Welcome back to the a la carte sports betting channel. My name is Matthew, aka Mattman. Here we break down the best UFC bets and the value that I can find coming up for upcoming events. The event I'm going to be talking about today is going to be UFC 299, headlining Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto Vera. We have some great fights to break down in that main event card, as that's what I'm going to start with today. But we're going to recap so you understand that I do this as a part-time gig for myself, and I want to lead others to success as well. So going back to the Ilya Topuria and Volkanovski fights, I did call that Topuria would be the winner in that fight, and I ended up winning $1,000 based on calling that he would knock him out. I had $100 on that to win like $450, and then the remainder on the money line to cover that $1,000. So I basically put $300 down and ended up winning $1,000. So that's a $600 profit. So 2xing your money, and that was just one of the fights. I had like an 8-leg parlay in that one as well. Only put like $5 on it to win like 110 or something, but that's where my other channel, the Parlay Kitchen, comes into play, where we whip up the life-changing parlays, or in this case, just a successful one. So just letting you know, I do know my stuff, and I watch all the fighters' previous fights before breaking down this. I don't look at the odds up until my breakdowns are complete, so I can see if I'm either with the books and seeing I found a favorite, or seeing I'm against them and finding value. So that would be my pitch for saying I am decent at this. So hopefully you enjoy and appreciate the breakdown. So starting off from top down, we're going to start with Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto Vera. And I promise this breakdown will not be biased at all. Not one bit is it biased. Not one bit is this biased. All right. But going off of their first fight, as I watched that back just 20 minutes ago, I was trying to see the pros and cons from what we saw in it. And it's very hard to break down 5 minutes worth of data. And it ended kind of, in my opinion, in a fluke. Because if you do go watch that fight again, Sean O'Malley ends up rolling his own ankle forward. Probably caused a break. I didn't look up the injury report on that. But it definitely looked like it compromised Sean within the first 2-3 minutes of that fight. And so to give an evaluation saying that Cheeto Vera won is very hard to say. So that's kind of the breakdown of the first fights. And then also seeing that Cheeto, when Sean does his flinch movement or his fake feints, Cheeto was biting at a lot of those, which I think is going to create a lot of openings for Sean. So that definitely makes me lean Sean in this, just watching how Cheeto reacted pretty heavily to some feints. So that shows me he's going to be respecting Sean's accuracy. Maybe not so much the power, as we haven't seen Sean be like a power puncher, but he finds the chin causing people's lights to go out. So looking at kind of more of Cheeto will definitely have the power edge advantage in this fight. And so how I kind of see this fight breaking down, as long as there's no fluke injury, is that Sean is going to respect Cheeto's power, but piece him up point by point, punch by punch, kick by kick, just take this to a decision. And if the opportunity presents itself where Sean has the opening off of a flinch, or Cheeto makes a bad move, Sean will try to execute a knockout. But I do not expect this in this type of fight. Sean's going to be defending his belt for the first time. Sean wants to keep this hype train alive. Sean has everything going for him right now, so he does not need to get caught by Cheeto. Cheeto's going to have to bring everything towards Sean if he wants the belt, as Sean is the golden boy for the UFC right now. He's the one making money. He's the one headlining this event. It's not Cheeto Vera headlining. It's Sean O'Malley. And so with that in mind, my best bets for this is going to be Sean O'Malley by TKO in the second, third, or fourth round. I think if we get to the fifth round and Sean's already ahead in points, there's no reason for him to get into a heavy risk moment in that type of opportunity when he already has to just finish out the fifth round for a guaranteed win. So those are the best bets. You could also do Sean by decision, but I never like placing that as a bet, as it just kind of says that this is going to be a bore fest, which honestly I do think might be my least favorite fight from Sean, but he can always surprise you and just knock someone out and end the night on a TKO. So that would be my breakdown for the Sean O'Malley and Cheeto Vera fight. Next fight is also going to be an awesome one. It's going to be Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. Looking over Dustin's last fight, hard to not give him credit. He was going up against Gaethje for the second time. In the first fight against Gaethje, he knocked him out. In the second time, Gaethje got a head kick that rocked Dustin's world. And I'm not going to look too far into that because Justin Gaethje is a hell of a fighter as well. And when you put two alphas into a cage, 50-50, you do 100 fights, 50 of the time Dustin wins, 50 of the time Justin wins. So nothing too crazy on that for Dustin. I'm just worried about how he is going to respond to this, kind of like I was with Volkanovski. But I do think Dustin is a little bit different than Volk, because he's not kind of on the back end of his career. He's just here to make some money and kick some ass, is kind of how I see Dustin and how he forecasts his career at this moment. And then we got Benoit Saint Denis, who's on the up and up and has had some good fights. I watched his last fight against Thiago Moses and held his own, but I saw that in comparison to Dustin's boxing, Denis is definitely not as good as boxer as Dustin Poirier is going to be in this. And watching his defense against Thiago Moses, who is more of a grappler, and he was getting some punches in there, really makes me concerned about Benoit in this fight. And I do think his hype train should come to an end. And I have Dustin Poirier by TKO, probably in the second round, as I think he's going to feel out Benoit Saint Denis and get him injured in the first round, but not completely out. So I would lean second round TKO for Dustin Poirier in this fight. And hopefully that can lead to the Conor and him later down the road for, what would that be, like a fourth and final time if Conor can get his life together. And then the next fight after that is a unique one after doing the breakdown. So we have Kevin Holland versus MVP Michael Page. And this one's unique because we all kind of know what Kevin Holland is. He's a lengthy fighter, has some power, but it's hard to take Kevin Holland serious, as I don't know that he takes himself serious when he's in there. He likes to be an entertainer more than a fighter. And I was pretty disappointed that he didn't beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I thought Kevin's the better fighter and should have won, but ended up breaking his wrist and then just ended up losing that fight, which I thought should have been a win for him. If he took the fight seriously, he could have grappled Steven, but he wanted to bang. So it's that type of not trusting his style and what he's going to do on that night that you should place money on him every time. And then going to this new guy, Michael Page, he's coming from Bellator, and I watched his fights, and there's not much data on him either, and he's had like 8 fights over there at Bellator. And I say there's not much data as he's just been one-punching people, and they've been quitting, like their eye starts bleeding, and they legitimately looked at the ref and said, "I'm done." And then the fight was just waved off, which that was just, it really showed different levels, I guess, in the UFC versus Bellator or the people that they have on their roster, as I think, Dana's going to cut that guy if anyone does that shit after one punch and you decided to be a professional fighter. So But going off that, he has multiple fights like that where he's knocked him out in one punch or just within the first 30 seconds. And like, it's good, don't get me wrong, that's badass, like that's legit as can be. But when it comes to like fighting someone like Kevin Holland's proven he can be in there with some tough competitors in the UFC, and he does his job, but he doesn't necessarily, I don't think, care about winning. Or he could be the guy when you put on your conspiracy foil hat, that's throwing the fights for the UFC because it is an entertainment LLC, so they could do that in theory and not be like charged with anything. But he's the type of guy, I can't place my money on him, and I do think he should win this fight, being more experienced in this type of environment. And Michael Page, I'd like to just see knock him out because he's just been doing that in one punch his last couple fights. So this fight, I would actually not pick either fighter, but lean towards an under, as I do think Michael Page has proven, even in a small kind of sample size, that he must have some power that's either crazy powerful or the accuracy is just so precise that it's doing the damage. So he's got the power. And then Kevin Holland, I'm definitely going to say, has more of the skills. And he's proven that he can grapple, he can submit, he can knock out. But he always, they call him the mouth because he just talks during the fight. And it's like, dude, like this is kind of ridiculous for what this sport is. But I would lean towards the under, as I think if Michael Page ends up dumping his load in the first round, I think Kevin Holland, based on what I've seen out of him, if he does take it seriously, could end up just finishing the fight to stop Michael Venom's Page's hype train. And so I'm going to lean the under. Hopefully it goes to a 2.5, which would probably be juiced if it is an under fight, if that's what they're projecting. So you could really not bet this fight in too many ways that I see as like profitable or strategical in this one. So this one I have is kind of like flipping over and under and hope for the best if you even want to entertain yourself on this fight. So that's what I have for those guys. Going to the next fight, we got Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Mahena, or however you say that. And this fight's going to be a banger. This is one of the more exciting fights on this card. And going off of the breakdowns of each person, like Gilbert Burns' fight with Chimaev showed me in particular that Gilbert Burns is one of the highest level athletes on this roster, as Chimaev has just been running through most of his opponents, and they have been good. The only people that have kind of slowed him down in his run to the belt is going to be Usman, former champion, could say one of the best welterweights of all time, if not the best. And then you got Gilbert Burns, who has been like second to Usman for a while, and he honestly could have won that fight versus Chimaev. But I think there's so much investment in Chimaev now, bringing those like Arabic cultures in Dubai, who seems to back him a lot, to get them more invested in their sport and their athlete. So Gilbert Burns, highest level, very impressed. Not much to really say that he does wrong or that I could critique in that guy's game. And then Jack Della Mahena is all around, I'd say, good at mostly everything I saw. He has good boxing. But when it came to his ground game, he survived a lot of the opportunities that he was put in. But he didn't look like the most comfortable. And when you watch Gilbert Burns go to the ground, he looks like a fish in water. Jack looked like a crab in water. Like, it works, but it's still kind of weird that that's going on, right? And so with that being said, I do think Gilbert Burns has all the advantages in this fight, and it's a pretty even line fight. I'm thinking from the last time I looked, I forget exact odds, but when you look at it, I'm pretty sure it's closer than what I would have lined this fight as. And so Gilbert Burns is definitely going to be the pick, and you could use the money line because it is close enough to even money. but I'm going to lean towards him by submission, as I just saw Jack in that grappling exchange he's had in his last couple fights that he can make mistakes. And I think against a guy like Gilbert Burns, if he does make that mistake, it's probably the end of Jack Della Mahena on his little run that he's on. Respect both fighters, like watching both of them fight. But in this case, Jack, I do think your hype train slows down a little bit too, as I just think Gilbert Burns is still in contention for a title shot. So that would be the breakdown of that. And then the last fight on the main event is going to be Peter Yan versus Song Yadong. And going to this fight, it's kind of a tough one also to break from like watching film. Because Peter Yan, I think, is just kind of on a slump after losing his belt. He's lost to Aljamain Sterling. He lost to Sean O'Malley. He lost to Marab. And, like, granted, all three of those are top three people, but when you're the champ and then start slowly, like, going down the line and losing these fights, it kind of gives me, like, how serious are you taking it? Do you even want to contend again? Like, so that's kind of bringing a red flag. And then Song Yadong kind of has just jumped the line from what I saw in his last fight. And it like, he went up against Ricky Simone, but I thought did good at defending Ricky's main attack, which was the takedown. But, like, that's all Ricky Simone was doing in there, and he was throwing wild like an animal. Peter Yan, on the other hand, is very technical and accurate with his boxing and is going to be more of a piecing up fighter than going for kill shots. And so with that being said, I do lean Peter Yan by decision. But like I said earlier, I don't like betting decisions, as you're kind of just waiting 15 minutes to see if you're right. And if anything happens in the fight, you lose the bet anyways. So don't like that. I don't see Peter Yan knocking out Song Yadong. And so Peter Yan by decision is what my mind's kind of leaning towards pretty heavily in this one. I think he can kind of get back at least to contention. I don't know that he'll ever get the belt back, but he's still pretty damn good, and his defense is one of a kind by just shelling up like a turtle, and he can just keep taking the punches. And Song Yadong didn't look to have like crazy good takedowns, so it was like, if you're gonna bet Song Yadong, you gotta do it by knockouts, what I see. And I just really don't see that happening. It's probably gonna be the best value on that fight. As Song Yadong does have powers, he throws wild, like I said, but Peter Yan just shells up like a turtle, and no one like can knock him out because they can't find his head behind that wall. So I'm going to go Peter Yan by decision. So once again, depending if it's a better bet to go to the decision with him or just to do the over, it's probably going to be an over 2.5, and it's going to be juiced. So that fight's also another one hard to bet. And so, like, the parlay that I think is a good one is going to be Gilbert Burns. And this one's like the glory parlay. You can do this on the money line, but I like going for the glory ones as it's pretty sick when you did call at least like 2 or 3. So Gilbert Burns by decision, or excuse me, by submission would be the one I start the parlay on. Dustin Poirier by knockout, and then Sean O'Malley on the money line. I do think those are all very live and in play. And once those odds drop and those props drop, I will also be throwing my own money at that. Probably like a $25 bet to hopefully win close to 300, 400, because those precision bets always are in some good odds. And so I'm thinking you can get up to probably like 1,200, 1,500, and then you just attack it however you'd like. I want to add in Kevin Holland's fight. I want to add in Peter Yan's fight. So those 3 would be my parlay, just to give you what I'm thinking going into not this upcoming weekend's fight, but the following one. So I just wanted to get this out there to you early. I will be doing another one next week, and I won't miss it, as all of my stuff here at this house is taken care of, and I can get back to business and hopefully make all of us some money and, just help guide everyone to what I think success is in this type of sporting arena and this marketplace. So my name is Matthew, aka Mattman. This is the A La Carte Sports Channel. Cheers, boys.